Hello and welcome to another episode of One More Glass of Wine. I am Jeremy Schalkwyk, your host, and today we've got a really full table. I'm actually really excited about this. We've got David and Mark here. Managed to pry them away from their busy days. I'm so sorry, gents. Thank you for joining us. We're currently in the midst of harvest, 27th of 28th of February. We're in the thick of it right now, guys. How's it going out there?
Busy. Who's going? Darby goes first.
Well, we've actually been quite privileged with quite cool days up until a couple of days ago. So it's been quite. We're definitely starting to feel the heat, but it's been a good harvest up until now. We are halfway, and very happy. The crop is down. There's not a lot of grapes, but the quality looks amazing, and we are very excited. And the gees is there. Guys are running around. There's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of screaming and shouting. So no, the gees is there. So we love it.
It's good to still have the gees midway through. I feel like if people were already falling off here.
Yeah, well, you need the gees with a Z.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And you speak a bit about the quality of it all. Coming into the cellar, how are you enjoying how the grapes are looking?
I think very good. I think from the beginning of the season, we've been anticipating, sort of very powerful and exciting vintage. You know, we had an amazing winter. The rainfall's back to normal again. We spoke a lot about drought in our history, in our past. But I think we've had an amazing winter. We didn't go to the beach in winter last year, so that's also a very good indication that it was nice and cold. So I think the anticipation was huge. The season started off really well. We always have wind. I think the Helderberg's known for wind, and I think we've, over the years, and I suppose Darby's been here for almost 15 years, I think, on the trot, and wind's an element that we're not scared of anymore, and I think we've really used that to our advantage. The one disadvantage is volume, but I think for us, it's not high on our priority list, is always looking at volume. We want to make the best and the most of, but I mean, the best always comes first. So it's been good. Fruit coming in, it's been up and down, people talking about an early vintage, late vintage, but I think it's very difficult to call it either, because some varietals have been normal, some have been early, some have been late. So it's changed the order a little bit, but I think the way we walk around our vineyards, it doesn't really matter about the order. It's about getting the grape that's most ready and ripe to come in. And what's come in is amazing, really, really good. The bunches are nice and loose because of the wind, so I think there's a lot of advantage. We've pressed some of our first reds. So
that's exciting.
They are super concentrated and exciting. So even though we work elegantly, we've tried to push it even more. But the wines are great. They're going to look forward to some barrel aging. I think the wood is going to be very, very subtle this year. Even if we throw wood at it, I don't think the wines are going to budge. They've got so much integrity and intention, and I think it's going to be exciting to look forward.
Oh, you've got me drooling just over the 24 vintage. The wines haven't even fully been made yet. So you touch on a bit of history, David being here 15 odd years on the trot. I like that. And Mark yourself since 2009 been here. That's some good age on you guys, like a fine wine, I'm sure. But now walking through the vineyards, we had the opportunity to be out there with you guys yesterday. How have you noticed a change in our vines and looking after them throughout this time period?
I think it's amazing to been here so long, and I think Mark, he even did some of his practical during his study days. He's been here and planted a couple of the Grenache. I think he was here with the planting of that, and it's really nice to. And I was here in 2008 as an assistant to Lombard, and I mean, there you really push the hard numbers and walk through the vines and get time to see every vine and get to know them. And when I left, I think Mark also spent a year or two in the vineyards just being there. And I think that is so important for us to learn as young people. We like to see ourselves as quite young. I think that will
ignore the grey and the beard. That's okay.
It will never change. And but yeah, it's really been amazing to go through all those vintages. And if you think about the years that we had all the winds and how you adapt, and then it's so nice to be able to start with a vintage and see, okay, we get quite a bit of wind in the beginning of the vintage. What did we do in those years? How can we adapt? What did we do wrong? How can we improve? And I think that's typical farming. And the nice thing about our industry is you can always adapt. It's never the same. It can't get boring because every vintage is different. And it's so nice to be at a place for so long and that you can start to see repetition and I remember those years we did this, and maybe we should look at that. With winds, you could get a lot of wind density, for instance, sometimes. So now we know that we had a lot of constant winds in some years. We must maybe open up the vines a little bit more so it doesn't get too dense. And so it's nice to have that in the back of your head.
You can't buy time. You can't buy those expertise. That's earned
Yes.
by experience. So firstly, I think Waterford is a big thanks to you guys for being here for so long. And it's such a lovely property to be a part of. 25, 26 years old this year. And again, that's time you can't buy. Being out in these vineyards with these soils, that's something that's really precious.
And I think the hard miles that's been done even before our time, to select the different cultivars that we've got here. I mean, all of that work's been done, and it's so nice to see that every little section on the farm has been utilized specifically. The bulk of it is Cab, but we've got these small little pockets that we can use and diverse a little bit, and are able to make amazing wines from that, and to learn from that as well. It's really great.
Yeah, that history is so cool. Sorry, go for it.
I think just quickly touching on your previous question, walking through the vineyards and how they've changed. I think, so Darby and I were way back when, even while I was studying, and I think at that stage we were really just hungry to learn, and we'd literally be walking up and down the rows, zigzagging like snakes and ladders, because that's what we were here to do. And you get a very mental picture of what you feel the vineyard changes over the block, and back then I think there was. It's amazing to see how things have evolved technology-wise, what's available to us today, and how we thought through the process back then. And you sort of got the very similar idea to what technology is showing us today. But I mean, the tools that we have today are also extremely helpful. But I think, like with all technology, with all literature, if you can't apply it to the real world, it's also difficult to interpret. So having the background of physically almost working it out yourself as like a Neanderthal of what tastes good and what tastes bad, there's a little bit more support from technology showing us, well, this is more of, Darby and I were looking at it just the other day, because you plant your vineyards in square blocks, but you don't necessarily always want to pick like that because vineyards change. And there's indication of there's more leaf coverage in certain areas of your block than others. So that's an indication of vigor. The vines are growing more. You can look at different levels. It's actually quite, we'll go into it at, I suppose, a later stage. But I mean, just where moisture sits in your soils, and all these sort of layers can be broken down these days in technology. But having the background, I think, of walking through and just learning the brunt of it, it makes it so much more useful today, looking at information like that.
Oh, that's for sure. Nothing quite like having your hands in the soil, that hands-on approach. I think that's, well, at least in my chats with you guys, it's a really useful aspect in crafting these authentic wines that we're trying to do that represent the soil. You got to know what you're looking at out in the vineyard before you can really wager that you're going to make wine that is indicative of that.
I think, it links back to nature, and I think even today we're still studying the human body, and we've been around for how many millions of thousands of years? I don't know, I might be quoting you incorrectly, but I mean that we still don't quite understand how the human body works and functions. And I suppose we look at nature in the same way as a plant. We all think we know what Cabernet Sauvignon grape is and looks like, and what tannins it's about, and what extract number you're looking for, but you never really know, because I don't think there's enough that we've got answers on to really say what's going to make the best wine. So for us, you need to link the two together.
Yeah, I like that. Well, I mean, I see David's had a couple of sips I've definitely enjoyed. Mark, I invite you to have a little sip of that wine there. We did pre-mention it a little bit earlier. This is the Estate Single Vineyard Grenache. The color on this wine is exceptional. For anyone who's only listening to it, I recommend maybe having a look at the video. This color on this wine is amazing. You were amongst the first hands that planted the Grenache vineyard. David, were you around there that time as well?
Not with the planting, but trellising, bringing them up to the cordon. Yeah, I was involved with it.
Amazing. Yeah, and now we've grafted on more. Well, I wouldn't say recently, but that was a couple years ago?
Yeah, it was about 4 years ago.
Okay,
Yes,
nice.
yes.
And it's I mean, it's a wine that I think every time people taste it, it really surprises them. And for myself, I feel it really shows our diversity, our intention in showcasing something a bit more unique and innovative. How's the Grenache vine doing out there, David?
I think the vines are really, really suitable for where they are. It's on a very, very small section, just under a hectare. So it's unfortunately what we've got, and it's the only section where we can plant it. But it's like the growing of it is very similar to our Cabernet vines. They are so. I always feel the less you need to fiddle with the vineyard, the happier it is, and it just shows you it naturally should be here. If you need to manipulate a lot, you've picked the wrong cultivar, wrong rootstock. We've, like with the Cabernet, it's one of the cultivars that we spend our least time in, because it just naturally grows so happy and in balance, slow growth. We give it the necessary feed and a little bit of water, and it is happy. So it's one of those comfortable.
Not a problem child.
No. So it's always good to have those good kids around.
Nice, I love that. And now growing it and essentially being the guys that have gone through its entire lifestyle with us, growing up with it, how was it in its early years, and how have we now learned to deal with it a bit better going forward?
From my side, David talks about, you want a good child in the house, and Grenache was actually quite naughty in the cellar. I think early on, it was, you saw so much potential and you saw so much in it, but it just never wanted to deliver. It was the wine that just somehow didn't always gain any texture. It always had so much promise of a beautiful aromatics, and then it ended up. It just died when you took a sip, and then you just had this alcohol of about 16.5%.
Wow.
And it somehow, I don't know why we didn't pick it right, but I mean, it was the highest alcohol, and it was sort of hidden, but I mean, you definitely knew it was there. And I think it sort of thinned out the wine a little bit, being so thin from the alcohol. But I mean, it's really changed. So many people tell me, what if it's come up with a new wine? But when I look at Grenache and I look at the building of Waterford, this is where it started. A lot of the stonework that built the archway, or sort of the Waterford building, comes from this vineyard. And when you're there preparing the soil, that's where the sandstone comes from. And it makes a lot of sense that Grenache is there. So it's been here for a very long time. We've just been very patient, I suppose, waiting for the child to grow up and not be so naughty. And I think also my approach, and I suppose David's approach as well, is things take time. You're not going to create something overnight. And my sort of approach to looking at a new wine is almost putting it out there and just seeing what I'm getting from it first. So that's in a sense of no wood, no oaking, not working it hard in the cellar. I just want to see what you're naturally getting out of it, understanding what the loopholes are. And the fascinating thing about Grenache, where we are today, is we aging it in porcelain. So I've still kept a very similar approach, yet the wine itself has evolved and created its own sort of unique being. And I think that's the best position for this wine. And early on, looking at the lighter color and the sort of structure of the wine, I think it wouldn't really age maybe as much. Still looking at our 2014, and it's something seriously exciting to look back at. So that's again things that you learn from spending time and taking the time to watch something grow with a bit of patience, and that's the best way forward. So.
100% agree. I believe wine it's a patient game. You're not going to get those results just straight out the gate. And why I think aging wine is more of an art, and something that people must really appreciate the time that's gone into crafting that wine, and then also appreciate yourself for having the patience and maybe the non-rubber arm to go pull that out of your cellar and get excited to drink it. I mean, we're going to move on to our estate Cabernet, which I think is a great wine to talk about the aging potential. But you don't just get that when you stick a vine in the dirt. You got to wait a bit for some vineyard age. You got to wait for some more character. How's the Cabernet Sauvignon vineyard performing outside?
So the Cabernet is getting very excited. I mean, the vines are, most of them, more than 20 years old now. So it's creeping up to older vineyards. It's got like nice thick stems. So they're really keeping up. So the Cabernet is still one of the easiest cultivars. They're growing happy, very comfortable, getting nice low yields from them, not overcropping. So it's the vines are really keeping up, and I mean they're sitting on such amazing soils. It's very nice to work with those soils with the different cover crops that we can plant between them. That's doing also very well. So no, like I said, the Cabernet is one of our favorite, easiest cultivars to work with. Yes.
Okay, and this year's crop in particular, how's it looking so far?
Very small berries, nice and really small berries. Would be interesting when we started to bring them in to actually measure the size of the berries to see how it compares with previous years. But it's tiny berries, nice loose bunches. The crop probably will be a little bit below average, but the grapes out there looks amazing and got very nice flavors.
Amazing. So I think we should maybe transition onto this wine here. Can we ask our lovely assistant to bring us, there's the ice bucket back there. Now you can bring the bucket. There we go. Thank you, assistant. Many hands it takes to make this stuff work here. So thank you. Gents, I know this is sacrilege. I know many of our listeners. Ooh, doesn't that hurt everyone? Thank you. We're going to move on to the Cabernet. We've had Katie, the wine fairy, on the podcast as well. And she says the best sound in the world is when you first pour a bottle of wine, with those first couple glugs into the glass. And I must admit, I do agree with you. Okay, so you talk about berry size. How influential is that in the vintage, and what affects your berry sizes?
So yeah, I think with the constant winds that we had, it will definitely, during flowering, you get the set in the bunches is less, so you will get less berries per bunch, and that will create a little bit of a looser bunch and lighter bunch. And with our little rain that we had throughout the growing season as well, with water, the berry size will also be less. With cell division and cell forming as well will also have an effect with those little bit of the wind and more harsh conditions. That would be less as well. That will create smaller berries.
Okay.
And then I think bringing them into the cellar.
I think the most obvious thing about smaller berries is you're going to get more concentration. You know, you've got the less juice to your skin ratio, which all the tannin, your phenolics, your flavor, and sort of what makes Cabernet mostly sits in the skin, and really sort of the flesh or the pulp of your berry is really just your juice, your acids. That's it, and especially when it gets closer to the pip, your acids start changing to different types of acids. So I think probably concentration, that you're going to find in concentration means deep color, lots of intensity, lots of flavor. So as much as what that is a positive, it's also something to be aware of and conscious of, because you don't want to work your grapes overly hard, because you almost don't want to extract 100% of what's available. It would just be too overwhelming for us. And I sometimes find also when you start extracting too much, it almost, you lose your varietal character. You don't get that real shine of Cabernet, that sort of earthy, cold stone feel. It almost dulls itself out a little bit when you start over extracting.
Okay. And then maybe a question for those who haven't tried our estate Cabernet. What is, for you guys in particular, something that defines this Cabernet Sauvignon from a taste or from a crafting perspective? What is something that anyone who can open this bottle can go, oh, wow, that's a defining characteristic?
I'm going to talk probably more from a wine tasting point of view. Grown up with this wine for quite a couple of many years, and I've tasted it alongside many Stellenbosch Cabernets, which are always exciting. I think Stellenbosch makes some of the most amazing cabs, but we're on different mountain ranges in Stellenbosch, different aspects facing the morning sun or afternoon sun, which makes quite an influence. And then also depending on your prevailing wind from the ocean also has quite an influence on your wine. So I think on Helderberg, maybe a term that sometimes gets thrown around a bit loosely, I often think of Helderberg as sort of the most structured and tannic, or not tannic, but I mean structured wine for longevity. And I think some people off the bat disagree with me because they taste and they taste freshness and lightness. But tannins don't have color. So when I look at Helderberg's Cabernets, I don't always see almost inky wines. So I think there is a sense of elegance and freshness being the closest to the ocean. So I think the fresh element is quite a giveaway for me to a Helderberg Cab. And then it's just got this real chalky tension of tannins in it. Not overwhelmingly extracting or thick, but it's got such a tension tannin, and I think that's where the longevity aspect is so strong in Helderberg Cabernet. So I find Helderberg Cab ages extremely well, yet even at 5 years old, the wine's actually quite pleasant and enjoyable as a youngster. The only thing that you don't get from Helderberg Cab is a fruit bomb. You're not going to get a fruity, tooty Cabernet. But I think a lot of people looking at Cabernet Sauvignons for, it's a little bit more of a historical, more authentic, more like a real wine type leather style of wine that you're going to find.
Okay. And then out in the vineyard.
Well, you're asking the guy that doesn't have all the big words for wines. But I'm always amazed when I open a bottle of our Cab is I really like the classicalness of it. It's like a typical Cabernet for me. It's one of those wines that you can drink and you can immediately identify this is a classic Cabernet. And the ease of drinking of it, we're in 2018 now, and it's very drinkable. And then we've got the privilege of opening older wines here as well. And every time you open an older Cab as well, it's the freshness what it got. So the ageability of our Cabernet is always amazing to me. When you will have the current bottle, and you won't always think this wine will be able to age, but it's really got the ability to go back for years.
Oh yeah.
I think if from working with David in the vineyards, we often dig little holes and we put our little round soft hats on and we jump inside. And if I look at sort of our soil structure, and we get the specialists out sometimes and we try and get them to give us names for our soils, because they change every 50 meters on Waterford. You're getting a different soil structure, and we don't know enough to really determine what it is, and we understand it. And a lot of the guys come back to us and they say we've got such high potential soils. It's so rich, it's so incredibly textured and layered, and I don't know, all these horizons or ozones, what they talk about in A and B. And then when you look at the vineyard, and this is what I noticed quite different to Helderberg vineyards versus the rest, is we have it's almost like a sturdy vineyard, but you can always look through the vineyard. It's not overly grown, it's not overly vigorous. It's quite sort of a lot of shade or sunlights penetrating through. When you go to some other vineyard or mountain areas in Stellenbosch, they've got quite a dense, big, vigorous growing canopy. Whereas on the Helderberg, because of all the wind, there's a lot of stunting of growth. And I think that's quite a big difference between Helderberg Cabernet versus the rest of Stellenbosch. I can't specify what Simonsberg vineyards look like. But I mean, in general, I think we have probably the slowest growing vineyards on top, but probably the highest potential soils from a growth point of view if you only had that soil. If we moved the soil to a less windy area, I think you'd probably be able to grow citrus.
But I guess that's what makes everything unique, and why this industry and why these products are so sought after and so respected. No one can make what we can make, and that's why, I mean, for myself, I have a lot of pride for South Africa, and I love the wines we make here. I love our culture, and I do feel that when you taste a lot of South African wines, you are tasting South Africa, and you have to take a moment and pause and realize you're tasting from some of the oldest soils in the world. Even though we're such a young wine industry, it's leaps and bounds in quality and appreciation of the land and the soils and nature from a sustainability and regenerative farming aspect. There's a lot of real good culture building that I feel goes into our wines, that I really hope the international market are seeing. And I mean, we get people coming through our doors from all walks of life, from all over the globe. And I mean, they leave with their jaws on the floor, just with the passion of the team here. So hats off to both of you guys as well for that.
I think the diversity of our country is absolutely amazing as well. And I mean, we don't have a typical Stellenbosch Cabernet. I mean, we've got our Helderberg Cabernet, and you can move around, and like Mark's mentioned, Simonsberg, and it gives you completely different Cabernet. So I think it's sometimes difficult to explain to people our different styles, but I think it's actually amazing that just to show our South Africa as a how diverse we are.
100%. So to get maybe a bit philosophical on you guys, because now I feel as though we've been talking a lot of wine science almost. You guys have been here for so long. You've worked at Waterford for an age. Why do you keep working here? What keeps you coming back every day? And I must admit, between the two of you guys, maybe a bit sappy, but you bring a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of gees to the team that I think a lot of people appreciate. What brings you or keeps you coming back every single year with such a vigor for this place and what we do?
Sure. I think it's always difficult. I think we sort of touched on the answer the other day. I think the love of winemaking is really about nature. It doesn't talk back, and it's so honest. And I think you know where you stand with nature, whether you like to agree or not. It's going to give you the right answer tomorrow, even if you don't want it. But I think especially at Waterford, making wine, it's a craft that you're trying to learn from nature, from a very specific area. And going somewhere else, your whole canvas changes. So I think there's a lot of excitement of wanting to see the future, where it's going, what are we doing. And I think there's also a part of us that feels like we still want to be part of the future as well. Also, I've been here for a long time. I think I was here for about 6 or 7 years before my first red wine really came out. So, you have to actually be here for 6 years to see your first wine come out as well. So it's a slow process, and I think moving anywhere else, you're starting from scratch. You throw so much away, and that's the real, I suppose, the wine side. But I mean, I think working with like-minded people at Waterford with a similar vision. We work hard, but you need to have fun doing it as well. Otherwise, working hard is no fun. So it's a whole sort of collaboration of a couple of things.
Okay. David, on your side?
I think I'm an everyday learner. So every day you get here, like I said, I'm outside in the vineyards all the time, and every day is different. So you've got the opportunity to learn more and more, and I think will be able to be here for years and still learn every day. So it's really amazing to have that in the back of your head, that you're going to get to work today and you might see something different. Or you will see something different. That's really cool. And then I think the other, apart from enjoying the farming, the vineyards, the wine, I'm very much a people person, and we've got an amazing team here, and it's so nice to get at work to share that excitement with people that's enjoying it as well. Yes, we clash and have personalities and whatever.
It would be boring if we didn't.
Exactly. So it's really fun, and we can challenge each other and still have a beer afterwards and say, well done, or a glass of wine. So I really enjoy the team working with from the top to the bottom. Great having, I'm talking a lot about the team outside and the gears there, and it's amazing to work with people that's also got a passion for the vineyards, working outside, and you can see they've spent more time here. I've been here for, let's say, 15 years, they've been here for 30, so they know the vines even better than me. So every day we learn from each other.
I think that's such an incredible mindset to have, that you can learn from anyone at any time, regardless of where they lie within the organization.
Absolutely.
And I mean, even we were out there this morning with your team, and just the shouting and the gees and the laughing, and Peter, we put a microphone on him to hear what he was saying, and everyone was just having the biggest laugh with him. I think that was just one of the most, it's such a memorable thing for me, that your team works so well together. So yeah, hats off.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done. And then in the cellar, Mark, you've got some French interns.
Yeah, we always have a dynamic team because we're not always the same every year. Harvest does bring about quite a bit of extra work in a very short space of time, so we generally look at getting about 2 or 3 extra hands. This year, 2 French interns. It's always a little bit of a concern because my French is not so great. Neither is my Portuguese and neither is my Spanish. So getting outsiders is sometimes difficult, but at the same time, wine has, in a way, its own language. So as long as I'm getting someone that's done a little bit of wine somewhere else in the world, we can somehow understand each other when, like, connect that hose, go to that tank. We're going to do a pump over now. And so it's a quick learning facility, getting people that have done other wine harvests. Then we've got Ricky as well, who's been here before. So it's always nice to have someone on the floor that's doing the hard work, that's actually seen it before from a previous vintage.
It's
it
not
also
a
helps
shock
a lot.
factor.
Also helps a lot. So yeah, lots getting going. Have a lot of fun. It's a couple of late evenings, especially when you're bringing in some cooler region grapes that take a little bit longer to get here. So yeah, good fun.
Yeah, one of the most exciting bits, well, not the most exciting bits, but something I always really enjoy is the keg that gets brought in during harvest. And I think a testament that a lot of people who come through our cellar doors here, come do a cellar tour with us, see the keg there and they go, oh, wow, isn't that so cool? I thought you guys were winemakers. What are you doing with beer here? And it sounds so bizarre, but it's a team building aspect. It's come, we're doing this together. And then once we're done, this is your reward. You guys can have a beer. And I just think that's a really nice team bonding experience, especially for these internationals that are traveling from so far and wide, coming to South Africa. I don't even think these 2 French interns have visited South Africa before, and now they're greeted with, firstly, a really hard work environment, but there are such great rewards from it, whether it's personal, it's learning, or the beer at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's also, it serves a dual purpose. It's also a palate cleanser, after a long day, so it's nice to. But I think also just get a sense of switching off or even breaking up your day. Otherwise, it's really wine for a very long time. I suppose it's also why we consume a lot of coffee as well. You just have these little moments of breaking away from wine during the day. So beer is just another element later on in the day that we open up the keg and get together and sort of share beer and carry on. So
I do love that. I think that's really lovely. And then now, I mean, we've focused on Cabernet Sauvignon. There's the Stellenbosch Cab Collective, which we're a part of, and they're doing some incredible work in unifying Stellenbosch Cabernet and getting it international. Do you guys feel that the Stellenbosch Cabernet is standing up to the international, I don't want to call it the benchmark, but to some of the more old world styles?
Yeah, I think we've definitely got a place in this market because, tasting Stellenbosch Cabernet, I think the biggest strength that's come out of it is that I think we've found unity. I think we've found an understanding and a sort of a collective understanding of a single message. We're not saying everyone is excluded. What we are saying is that Stellenbosch Cabernet is supreme, or it is premium. There is definitely a place for it. It makes sense. There's research. There are very good factual reasons why Cabernet does really, really well. And then it's just putting this all together and taking it as a single stand internationally so that people can make sense of it. I think the biggest issue with South African wines at this point is a little bit of a smarty box. No one really knows what to take serious besides Shannon in a way. So I think it's very understandable. There's a lot of credibility behind it. There's history behind Stellenbosch Cabernet. There's proof. There's people who have tasted it. There's Stellenbosch Cabernets have won international wine trophy competitions to speak. So, and it's highly regarded. So I think there is a sense of understanding. But you also need to look back. South Africa's viticulture and winemaking is still relatively young in the international sense. We got vineyards in our country the same year as what the United States did, and Napa Valley is way more established than what Stellenbosch is. And it's not because we're younger. It's just we had a bit of a slow start. And I think, like you mentioned earlier, we've got the swirls. We've got so much uniqueness. There's no reason why we shouldn't be in the same league as areas like Bordeaux, like Napa, and even in Australia. So I think it's good. It's getting together. I think the Stellenbosch Cabernet Collective is about 5 years old. And it always takes a few years just to understand the real message that you want to take out there. And I think there's a lot of movement and a lot of drive, especially in the last 18 months happening. So it's exciting to watch, and I think it's a great message to be a part of.
Yeah, that's spot on. I think it's really noteworthy to fly that Stellenbosch Cabernet flag high. And I mean, we're between the two of you guys and the Waterford ethos championing Cabernet Sauvignon because of our soil, of where we are, where we come from. I think it's a really an important message for the rest of the world to hear. And I do think it, or believe it, brings a lot of tourism into our doors as well. You chat to some American tourists, I mean, to mention Napa, and some European tourists, they're coming here especially to Stellenbosch to taste the Cabernet, which is really exciting. So there is a step away from the Chenin Blanc story of being the only wine coming out of South Africa. So yeah, I'm personally quite excited about this.
Yeah. To me, the wine speaks for itself, and it's up to Mark and the sales guys to send out those messages. My biggest challenge is in South Africa, we struggle to get our vine age. So our conditions is very harsh, and my goal is to be able to grow our vines older. We struggle to get our older vines because of our, apart from viruses that we've got in South Africa, the conditions is harsh. We've got a very intense sunlight. We've got the winds, so it's difficult to get vineyard age. But we're working around ideas to get that and improve and get our swirls going and build healthy plants to get older vines.
I think this conversation also goes hand in hand with the Old Vine Project. Darby talks about it. We're in Africa. Everything in Africa is twice as hard. To be 35 years old in Africa, it's like being 80 years in Europe. There's not a lot of luxuries out here. It's harsh, it's tough. And I think what the Old Vine Project have really done is got that image of, a 35-year-old vineyard in this country is seen as mature, like properly mature. So I think that's helped a lot. And Darby mentioned earlier, a lot of our vineyards are touching 25 years. We've got a very high percentage of relatively old vineyards. If you're thinking of 35 being registered or certified as old vine, 25 is not far off. And we're seeing incredible results from those wines. So I think Stellenbosch Cabernet, the Old Vine Project, and what we're sort of touching on a lot of our vineyards, striving for that sort of old vine status and understanding that old vines do indeed make better wine. There's an incentives for growers out there to get their vineyards to 35 years old, because you will be paid more because the wine is definitely of better quality. So I think those two conversations work really, really well together.
Fantastic. Well, gents, won't keep you any longer. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. There's wine to be made. It's a bit warm outside, so do put on sun cream, Darby, please and thank you. But gents, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on another vintage, and good luck, and thanks for carrying on the Waterford ethos.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Darby.